We're often told that consciousness is pure, unmodified, and we can realize that by turning the attention back on itself. But consciousness also has this overriding tendency to identify with whatever notions arise within it. This is the story of our lives. This infinite consciousness has, as it were, assumed the nature of the jiva, that's the individual, and oblivious of its true nature, it experiences whatever it thinks of as being. Whatever it thinks of as being, whatever it conceives of, this becomes our reality. We think of ourselves, we conceive of ourselves as individuals, as having an identity. We conceive of ourselves as having a body, as having senses. We conceive the notion of a world out there, which we experience through our senses. This is what we experience and what we think of as our being. Even as to the child the unreal ghost it visualizes at night is truly real, the jiva conceives of the 5 elements which it sees as existing. Well, I suppose in our case we could talk about the 92 elements of the periodic table. These are nothing but notions of the jiva. However, the jiva sees them as if they are outside it. It thinks that some are within and others are outside of it, and so it experiences them. The ones that are within we call imaginary, and the ones that are outside we call real. It's quite curious that, isn't it? The ones that are closest to us, most intimate to us, the thoughts and feelings that we have, we don't give them the same reality as what we project out there. We say, that's what's real. What's in here is not real. And this is a cultural thing. Some cultures would value more what's going on inside than what is regarded as the consensus reality, the external consensus reality. Knowledge is inherent in consciousness, even as void is in space. So knowledge is about getting to know. It's about knowing itself, and this is done through concepts, through feelings. Knowledge can take many different forms: emotional knowledge, intellectual knowledge. However, consciousness now believes knowledge to be its own object. In other words, it believes that the things that it knows are independent of itself. The diverse objects are limited by time and space, which are themselves but the notional division in consciousness brought about by this division of consciousness and knowledge as subject and object within itself. So again, time and space have been created by consciousness to organize things, to organize its notions. So time and space are organizing notions, and this comes about through the division into subject and object, into the idea that there's something to be known and there's somebody that does the knowing. Such division does not exist in the self, which transcends time and space. We tend to think of time and space and then the idea of transcending it, but it's not like that at all. It's not that we're going on to a different level from time and space. We're just getting back to the original level from where the notion of time and space originated. However, the infinite consciousness with the knowledge inherent in it conceives of diverse creatures. Such is its power, which no one can challenge. It's an amazing power, all this coming into being, moment to moment to moment. The inert space is unable to reflect itself within itself. But because its nature is infinite consciousness, Brahman reflects itself within itself and conceives of itself as a duality, though it is bodiless. So this is the difference between consciousness and space. Consciousness is often likened to space because space allows everything to arise within it, and so does consciousness. But what consciousness is doing is allowing itself to arise within consciousness. Vasishta continued, whatever this consciousness thinks of, that it sees as existing. Its concepts and notions are never barren. If we think of this naively, we just think, oh, I'll think a thought and it will materialize. And this is, I think this understanding has been corrupted into stories of yogis who can materialize things. Maybe they can, but it's a bit of a red herring. It's a bit irrelevant, really. Whatever consciousness thinks of, means whatever consciousness conceives of. To conceive of something is to bring something into being. A conception is what we think in terms of. It's what we center our understanding around. Its concepts and notions are never barren. They always give rise to new concepts and notions. They're self-perpetuating. We try and fit as much of our experiencing into these notions, into these concepts, these things that we've conceived. In a golden bracelet, there are these two golden bracelet, one being the reality, gold, and the other being the appearance of bracelet. Even so in the self there are both consciousness and the notion of material, inert substantiality. Since consciousness is omnipresent, it is ever present in the mind in which the notion arises. When something's omnipresent, that means that's all there is. But because we've got the notion of material substantiality, of physicality, that notion is with us much of the time because we relate to this notion of physicality. When we look into it from a personal level or from a scientific level, we see that notions of personality tend to crack. And then we begin to understand that physicality is only notional.